Hello my cardinals in Christ, I'm Bojan and today we are dismembering Conclave, a movie about how not getting out to get fresh air muddles your sound judgment. It took me a while to notice that the movie does not contain "the" in the title. Before we move on, spoilers ahoy, especially about the major plot twist near the end. But it's super secret for now. Would I be able to make a better movie? No, I'm only doing this because I think it's fun. Let's start with the review. A nervous cardinal goes to the room where the Pope lies dead. They pray over him in a pretty good Latin. There is a neat scene where the cardinals struggle to get the ring off his finger, which they ceremoniously destroy. John Lithgow plays Cardinal Tremblay, and I'm sorry, but whenever I see John Lithgow, regardless of how many serious roles he plays, I always think of this.
What's this? This is brilliant!
To me, he Leslie Nielsen his own career. The responsibility for convoking the conclave falls on Dean Thomas Lawrence. They seal up the room where the Pope has died, and lots of ceremonial is shown. At one point in the movie they say, "Hell arise tomorrow when we bring in the cardinals," which is true based on my own opinions on bishops. There are a lot of stunning shots when the cardinals arrive. Every shot here is worthy of a picture frame. Cardinal Aldo does not want the papacy, but does not want Tedesco to get it, who comes in full-blown cardinal attire and slaps an assistant's hand, indicating that he's bad news. Of course, he's a traditionalist. We can never have a traditionalist as a protagonist, now can we? Lawrence mentions that he tried to resign once, but the Pope refused him. It is also mentioned that Lawrence has a crisis of faith. Good God, can we have a character that does not deal with a crisis of faith in the same way in every one of these churchy movies? Lawrence meets with Cardinal Wozniak, who attempts to confess his sins to Lawrence. Lawrence rejects his attempt, and Wozniak admits that Tremblay was the last person to meet with the Pope, and that the Pope asked him to resign over gross negligence. You know what is meant by that in these sorts of movies. Anyway, I'm surprised that Wozniak tried to relay that info in confession. If I, a random Serb from Serbia, know that you cannot use any information obtained during confession outside of confession, I wonder what Wozniak thought Lawrence could do if he admitted in confession of Tremblay's machinations. It doesn't even matter because the cardinals are being sequestered anyway. I just found it a sacramental pet peeve. Anyway, there is another issue. It turns out that the late Pope made someone a cardinal without informing anyone, a Mexican, and the Archbishop of Kabul. This gets a very muted applause from other cardinals. He blesses the meal, and during the blessing, he prays for a number of groups usually left on the sidelines, making it clear that he is a caring soul who thinks of everyone. I also must note here that this is the first time that I saw a Catholic make a sign of the cross that is a proper Latin cross, and not a Greek cross at best or St. Peter's cross at worst. Let the watcher understand. The most traditional cardinal and papabile is shown, of course, to be a racist, a lover of the Tridentine Mass, and having the table manners of a pig. Lawrence and his clique convene and discuss all those views. In short, he is the polar opposite of Tedesco. He is very liberal and does not want to be the Pope. Lawrence confronts Tremblay, but he denies the Pope ordering him to resign, and claims that Wozniak is clearly suffering from alcohol withdrawal. Tomorrow, on the first day of the conclave, Lawrence gives two sermons, one in Latin, a rather tepid one, and then one in English, heartfelt and horrible. He literally says, "One sin I came to fear more than others, and that is certainty. Even Christ was uncertain in the end. My God, why have you forsaken me?" Certainty is the great enemy of tolerance. Okay, if you came to Christianity yesterday, let me unpack this really quick for you. When Christ says, my God, why have you forsaken me?" he's quoting a messianic psalm, Psalm 21st to be more precise, which foretells of the crucifixion. Second, certainty and tolerance aren't Christian virtues or sins. Christian certainty is faith when a virtue and a presumption when a sin. Christian tolerance is accepting others when it's a virtue, and it's accepting of other people's sins when it becomes sinful. The lack of this important distinction is what makes this homily such a travesty. He then implores the cardinals present to pray that God gives them a pope who doubts, even though Christ did not have all that high view of doubt. See John chapter 20, verse 27. The whole idea of the homily is to show that popes are still people of flesh and blood and they shouldn't be consumed by their office, but it comes out as actively seeking a bad pope. I'm just saying the same result could be achieved with a Christian homily, not a secular one. On the other hand, the Vatican does have a tendency to use horrible corporate language for its prayer attentions. I made a couple of videos on that on my secondary channel, Orthodox Banter with Bojan. Check them out. In any case, after the homily, Lawrence asks his assistant to seek out the cardinal who was present at the last meeting that the late pope has had, and to see whether Tremblay was ordered to resign. The ballot begins. Tremblay, Tedesco, Aldo, and Adeyemi win the most votes, with Lawrence winning a couple. 31 others win a single vote. No one won the majority of 72 votes. They burn the ballots, there's black smoke, all the stuff. Lawrence's assistant hints to him that there is a report about Tremblay. He also says that the Pope paid for a certain medical appointment for Cardinal Benitez. You know, the saintly Mexican archbishop, which Benitez later cancelled. I do hope this does not lead to a major plot twist down the road. Lawrence meets Cardinal Aldo. Apparently, Lawrence's homily swayed some of the votes from Aldo to Lawrence, thus endangering the liberals' cause. Aldo also claims that every cardinal deep down wants to become a pope and has already picked a new papal name for himself. On the second day of the conclave, the African cardinal Adeyemi wins the most votes. Lawrence's position improves, and Benitez wins twice the votes he had prior. In the next immediate ballot, Adeyemi is in the clear lead, with all of the other cardinals taking a nosedive, with the exception of Benitez, who now has amazing 4 votes. An incident in a cafeteria involving a Nigerian nun reveals that Adeyemi had illicit relationships with her. Despite the nun confessing her sins to Lawrence, this still causes a whisper campaign that ruins the cardinal's reputation. He is effectively out of the race. In the next 5th ballot, Tremblay and Tedesco are in the lead. Adeyemi receives a fraction of his former votes, and Benitez has now risen to generous 6 votes. On a stairwell, Aldo and Lawrence discuss that in order to defeat Tedesco, they have to vote for Tremblay. Lawrence is really opposed to this idea, and the two have a split. Lawrence wants to serve God, whereas Aldo wants to defeat the opposition. Lawrence confronts Sister Agnes about the presence of the Nigerian nun, and she indicates that it was Tremblay who insisted that she is present in the cafeteria. He then confronts Tremblay himself, but he rejects any claim of foul play and accuses Lawrence of trying to label the opposition. Breaking the seals on the Pope's bedroom, Lawrence finds a document behind the headboard, which shows that Tremblay bought off the votes. He then tries to convince Aldo of resuming his candidacy, but he refuses. It is clear that Aldo himself was also bribed. With the help of Sister Agnes, Lawrence copies the report and delivers it to all the cardinals. With everyone now aware of Tremblay's machinations, he is effectively done for. Aldo apologizes to Lawrence and urges him to go against Tedesco, now that he is practically unopposed. Lawrence humbly votes for himself on the next assembly, but a car explosion outside ends the conclave early. There were 4 simultaneous attacks in Europe, with 52 dead. Tedesco gives a rousing speech, accusing everyone of being too soft with Islam, and if you ignore the violent undertones, it is a good speech against today's stupidity. He is opposed by Benitez. He initially starts off strong, telling everyone that they know nothing of what war is. However, in my personal opinion, his homily ends up on a very weak note. The next session begins. For the first time in days, the cardinals hear birds chirping through a window that was shattered by the explosion. In a surprising twist, Benitez wins, opting for the papal name of Innocent, which is a perfect segue for one of the funniest memes I've ever seen. Such a lovely victory. The end. Hello everyone, I'm glad that you watched the video. If videos like this brought you entertainment and or edification, please consider pledging $1 or $2 on crowdsourcing platforms. You don't want me to get sponsors, do you? Trust me, you don't want me to talk about unverified mental health platforms or shady coffee grinders that might saw your hand clean off. Do you? Do you? Oh yeah, the plot twist. Yes, about that. So the Pope is about to west. Lawrence's assistant relates to him that Benitez had an appointment at a clinic in Switzerland. The new Pope is actually intersex, having both male and female characteristics. even though she seems to be primarily female. Benitez quotes Lawrence's sermon that he wants a pope, or well, a popess who doubts, and boy did he get one. The end. Okay, so for the good sides. The visuals are stunning. You can use every still as wallpaper. The performances are also great. You can actually hear Lawrence's breathing throughout the entire movie, indicating just how isolated he is. For the bad. The film constantly shows traditionalism as something bad. Progressivism, on the other hand, is shown as something positive. It may have flawed actors, but they're still a force for good. When Benitez is introduced, the movie might trick you that it's not about traditionalism nor progressivism, but about Christ. But no, after her secret comes out, it goes back to progressivism being good. There are visual cues to this as well, like the shutters opening as the new pope is elected, or showing nuns in white habits. The sole staunch traditionalist is shown without any redeeming qualities. Tremblay, while being a clear villain, isn't shown as the face of progressivism. A Ukrainian cardinal, Mykola Bichok, said that the movie never portrays cardinals as praying. It shows them praying, but it also shows them not being loyal to the gospel, but to progressive politics, to which ultimately the gospel is but a hindrance. I hope you like this video. I generally would suggest you watching some other movie Dismemberment, but you can easily search for Bible Illustrated Movie Dismemberment. I generally dismember religious horror movies. This time, I will recommend you listen to a short story of mine, The Duel of Holy Bones, especially if you're into church drama as shown in Conclave. Bye!